plan, and I do a little here journaling along with that. If you'd like the details, you can go to markwarnock.com/intern. Everything's linked right there for your convenience and your equipping. But I was in 1 Samuel today, reading about Samuel as a young boy hearing the voice of the Lord. And then in the same day, I read the chapter where he's an old man. And here's what happened. All of Israel comes to Samuel and says, "You're old and your sons do not follow the Lord." And I'm like, wait a second. What happened? Like Samuel was like a faithful little kid, and he heard from the Lord, and he prophesied, and the Lord let none of his words fall to the ground or whatever. But then he becomes an adult, and his kids aren't following the Lord. And I thought, okay, well, where did he learn that from? He learned it from Eli, who is the priest there before him. Do you guys know these stories? Y'all read the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Eli was the priest at Shiloh, but his kids, Hophni and Phinehas, were bad. Like, they were bad kids. And it was kind of like Eli's fault because he never, restrained him or corrected him in the way. Like, they were, sleeping with the women who served at the tent of meeting. They were, corrupting that. It was bad news. And so then I got to thinking, all right, so who did a good job of raising their kids in the Bible? All right, think with me. Can you think of an example of a faithful mother or father raising a faithful son or daughter? Okay.
Abraham.
Okay. Who raised?
Esau.
I know it's early. Come on, guys. Isaac. First Ishmael, and that didn't turn out so well, but that wasn't really Abraham's fault, but Isaac. Okay, so you have that one. What else?
Mary and Joseph.
Okay. Raising Jesus. Good. Jesus. Nice. Okay, Mordecai and Esther. Mordecai was sort of adoptive uncle type to Esther, but Esther was faithful. That's good. I was thinking about Timothy and Lois and Eunice, his mother and grandmother. But then I thought, Moses, I was thinking not so much father-son or parent-child thing, but I was thinking about in terms of preparing for succession, because when the Israelites came to Samuel, they're like, who's going to lead us when you die? Like, there's nobody left. So Moses had Joshua, but it's not really clear that Moses recruited Joshua. I think Joshua sort of started following him around, and that's how he kind of had the mantle. Because when it was time for Joshua to hand over the reins, who was there? There was nobody, and it launched the period of the judges where everybody did what was right in their own eyes, and there was no transfer of faithful discipleship. Who else did I write about? Eli's sons went off the reins. Samuel's sons, King David's kids, were kind of a mixed bag, right? He didn't do so great. Because even Solomon, who is the one he kind of built into the most. By the way, it's interesting to read David's conversation with Solomon just before David dies, because he's basically giving Solomon instructions on who he needs to kill in order to solidify his reign as king. Right? When it says, do not let his gray head go down to the grave in peace, that means you need to go take him out. Right? You have to learn to read around the euphemisms in Scripture. Anyway, and the only other one that I thought of was Zechariah's son, John the Baptist. And it's interesting to me that you don't have good examples of the transfer of faithfulness until you come to Jesus. And what does Jesus focus most of his ministry? Building up 12 key leaders. And that is why 2,000 years later we are still here. You think about Paul and how he went from place to place and raised up elders and transferred the mantle of leadership. So particularly those of you who are interns, I think part of your objective for this season of your life is to build up your own faithfulness. Okay? But let's all remember that probably the most important task is not to just take care of ourselves, but to build it out into others that we lead, others that we disciple. Your sons and daughters are the ones that you will have, grandkids. nieces and nephews, things like that. Because the power of faith comes when it's multiplied into other people. So we really, really need to be passing it on. Okay. So that's what I learned today in my F260 Bible reading and my Here Journal. If you're not on some sort of reading plan, come see me and I'll help you get hooked up with that. All right, let me just look at my cheat sheet from Leslie, the Real Pro. That was brief spiritual encouragement. It probably wasn't that brief, but she told me to do it. Okay. There's a ton of prayer cards because there's fewer of us than usual. So don't let any